Hey y'all, and welcome to The Wannabe Author. I'm Taryn, a writer figuring out how to turn my publishing dream into reality, one chaotic step at a time. This is the place where we talk books, writing struggles, mental health, and everything in between. Whether you're a writer, a reader, or just curious about the process, I am so glad you're here. Let's jump in. This is my 10 millionth take on this, and if I get it wrong again, we are just jumping into the episode. Just kidding. My guest today deserves a worthy intro, so I don't think anybody realizes I'm an author. If you want me to write, I can write you something. But talking is just, it's a little out of my wheelhouse. And I have a podcast. Hey y'all, and welcome back to The Wannabe Author. I'm your host, Taryn Christine, and I'm just so thankful to have you all here with me today. I have such a fun episode for you. If you've ever wondered what it's really like to be on submission, how the waiting game is going, and what goes on behind the scenes of building a writing career, then you're in for a treat. My guest today is a debut author currently on submission, is the co-founder of the writing community called Novel Bound, and an all-around publishing industry pro. My guest and I get real about the highs, the lows, and the absolute spiral-inducing moments of this journey, and everything we wish we knew before diving in. Whether you're querying, drafting, or just here for the tea, this episode is packed with insight, honesty, and probably some unhinged writer moments. It is my honor to introduce you all to Sophia Riley.
I counted too fast.
Hi. Good morning, Sophie. Thanks so much for joining me. Is it Sophie or Sophia?
Technically Sophia, but most people call me Sophie, and
Okay.
I don't care either way.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure. Okay. Thanks so much for joining me. I'm so happy to have you here.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
Good. Okay, so we're going to get into like all the ins and outs of you because I want to hear all about your journey and stuff. But just to kind of set the tone and precedence for everybody listening and watching, I've had some questions regarding being an author. Even some authors who have self-published have come and asking me about traditional publishing and what that is. And I didn't realize some people don't know what traditional publishing is. So we're going to go, since we're both on that same route, experiencing the joys of that journey together, we'll get into the details and explain what that is and all the fun stuff. So I want to start out by asking you to share a little bit about your journey to becoming an author.
Yeah. So I have been writing literally as long as you can be writing. I think even before I knew how to write, I was making little storybooks and illustrating them. And the earliest evidence I have of this is from like 3 years old. So it's always been an inevitable thing for me.
Oh, okay.
So I've always wanted to grow up to be an author and an illustrator. That's what I used to tell people. But I really started taking it seriously in college. I decided to major in creative writing my sophomore year, which I don't think is necessary to be an author, you know. So many people are authors that are not creative writing majors, but for me, it just was the path I wanted to take. And I queried my first book my senior year of college.
Okay.
I didn't really go that poorly, but I thought it went poorly. But I actually have queried 3 books now, and my third one was the one that got me an agent back in October. So I'm currently on submission, which is when your agent is sending your book out to publishers, which I know is where we're both at.
Yes.
Yeah, so I've written like I think 8 books now, but yeah, trying to publish my debut at the moment. So
That is so awesome.
thank
That
you.
is so cool. What an accomplishment to say and despite the publishing, because the publishing industry is just, that is quite a jungle to sift through.
It is.
So just to be able to say that you've completed 8 books is such an accomplishment.
Thanks.
So cool.
I did
So
like
cool.
4 of them last year, so I don't know what happened there. But
That is so cool.
I don't know what happened.
I love that so much. All right. So what inspired you to write? How did you navigate? Well, first, what inspired you to write? And then I'll ask that second question.
Yeah, I'm super interested in how big issues can be explored through, like, how you can scale them down and explore them through relationships.
Mm.
So I tend to write more non-romantic relationships, which I know is an opposite of you in your book, but um, I love to write about sibling relationships or like interesting parent-kid dynamics, stuff like that. I've always just been really interested in the real world and stories that feel very grounded in reality, although I am branching off from that a little bit here and there, but um, that's always been what's intrigued me and what I like to read a lot of the time too. So um, yeah, I mean, my books the past few years have been very realistic. I do have a couple that are kind of like, I think everybody wrote a young adult dystopian novel when they were a young teenager, but
Absolutely.
I have one of those as well. But yeah. What was the other end of that question?
No, you're good. So with getting agented, I don't like that word. Um, how did you navigate that process? What was that like for you?
That's a little bit of a long story.
It
I'll
is.
try to say it quickly. So, like I said, I started querying my first book as a senior in college. I only sent out, I want to say 14 queries for that. And so basically, if you're listening and you don't know, querying is when you like pitch an agent, and an agent is the one who represents you in the publishing industry to help you get your book sold to a publisher. And querying is a notoriously long, terrible, annoying process. Um, so when I pitched my first book, it's a middle grade contemporary fiction novel. It's really cute, but it just wasn't, I don't know. It's not my masterpiece or anything, but I got two full requests almost right away, and they were both rejections, and I was so sad about them because I was very new to querying and like didn't know how to handle rejection. So I
Mhm.
ended up querying that, even though my stats were pretty good. Like
Yeah.
14 queries and two fulls is not bad at all. So I moved aside from that, spent some time working on this other book, Mind of a Flying Bird, which is like still my favorite book I've ever written.
Mhm.
Um, I started querying that last January through July. It just wasn't going super well. I think a big issue was it's kind of a longer book. It just wasn't, it didn't fit the market at the time. So,
Mhm.
um, stepped away from that. But while I was querying that, I had finished up this other book called After Charlie. And
Okay.
After Charlie, I sent it to beta readers, got really good feedback. I just felt super good about it. And I ended up doing a pitch event on Twitter for that book. And a pitch
Oh, cool.
event is where you like pitch your book. Um, I ended up getting a like from an editor, and she asked me to send it to that. She worked for a small publisher, and she asked me
Okay.
to send it. And then a month later, in September, I got an offer on my book. They wanted to publish the book. And so I was like, whoa, okay. Um, and then when I got the actual contract from them, it turned into a 3-book offer. And so I was like, what do I do? Because I felt okay navigating one book on my own, but like committing to 3 books was a lot without an agent or
Yeah,
anyone to help me through that with contracts and negotiations and stuff.
for sure.
Um, so I ended up kind of scrambling over the next couple weeks. I was reaching out on Twitter. I was like, "Hey guys, please help me. I have an offer and I can't find an agent." I
Uh-huh.
emailed every agent that still had my query or my full or anything, and crickets. Like I could not get anyone. I had a few people on Twitter be like, "Hey, you can send it to me." I had this random agent offer me representation, but I wasn't feeling super great about it.
Yeah.
And then one of my mutuals on TikTok, I knew she was a literary agency assistant, but I had never like connected with her through that. Like we were friends because we were writers.
Yeah.
And I never wanted to like take advantage of our friendship to be like, hey, can you help me get an agent? So, but she reached out to me and was like, hey, there's this agent that works at my agency who I think you'd be a really great fit with. If you decide to query her, like no promises, but I can kind of put in a good word for you or like tell her to read it quickly because I know you're trying to get stuff moving.
Yeah.
So I queried her and just sent her my full right away. And literally like 2 days later, she was like, "Hey, I love your writing. This is what I would do with your offer, blah blah blah." And I was like, "What does that mean?" And
Yeah.
so I ended up setting up a call, and she offered me rep. And normally, when you get offered representation, you want to let the other agents know so they can also offer you representation
Yeah.
if they're interested. I ended up withdrawing a lot of my queries and just choosing to go with her because I felt really good about her and her track
Mhm.
record and connection and everything. So, yeah, I signed with her like a few days after that. And then I went on sub almost immediately, which was really cool.
Yeah, that is so cool. Kate, so much about that whole experience. I just learned so much. I didn't even what can you go more into the pitch event on Twitter? I've
Yeah.
never even heard of that.
Yeah. So Twitter, there's a ton of them. I think they just keep making new ones. But a pitch event is like you, they all have different parameters, but
Mhm.
basically you pitch your book and you use a hashtag so that it's part of the event. Um, and I think mine was small pitch. And so this one was pitching to small publishers. So you don't necessarily need an agent to publish with them. Um, and if you get a like from an editor or an agent on that post, that's kind of an invitation to query them or send them your materials. Um, so that's what happened to me. But I almost didn't do it. Like I did it super last minute.
Yeah.
So really well.
No, that's so awesome. And I love how not backwards, but not what is it? The normal route because you got your editor and then your agent. That's super cool.
Yeah, I know. And I mean, we're now sending my book out to other editors and stuff, so I don't know
Yeah.
if I'm gonna go with that because it's a smaller publisher. They have smaller resources and stuff, but
Yeah.
it's definitely an option. So, but yeah, it's crazy. It's kind of like I feel like my whole querying journey was just a little unusual.
Mhm.
It's not what I expected to happen at all, but it turned out really cool.
Yeah, no, that's so awesome. I'm so excited for you, especially to see just your success and your journey as you keep going. Um, so that's kind of you kind of did dive into what your experience has been like navigating traditional publishing. Not the I can't even think of the word I'm trying to use and I keep trying to say it. But the normal, I guess, path of traditional publishing, but you are kind of now on that of going through and doing submission and stuff. That's
Yeah,
super
I
cool.
just went a really roundabout way of getting there. So,
Yeah. Hey, I feel like that might be very like I don't know, that would fill me with a lot of pride to see so much want for it after you've put so much work and have gotten like the rejection you've experienced and
mhm.
stuff. I can see how that would feel really cool to have an editor and then your agent you've posted a few things of things she said about your book. She sounds like a doll and is just in love with your stories, right?
Yeah, so I'm actually my agent works for agency in the UK. She's British, which
Oh,
is also
cool.
usual. But it's called the Blair Partnership. It's the same agency that represents J.K. Rowling, which is really awesome. But yeah. Um yeah, so she's great. And then yeah, it's just been a whirlwind. Like I still can't really comprehend that I have an agent and that my book is on submission and like
Hmm.
I don't know, that's wild.
So awesome. Congratulations. I know it's been a little bit, but congrats. Um, okay. What was there any particular moment through that whole journey, through that whole process where you just finally were like, yes, I'm officially an author now? Or have you just always felt that way from the beginning?
I actually I've always had a bit of a hard time calling myself an author. Like in my
Hmm.
mind, because I've always had this plan of going traditional publishing route. In my mind, I was like, when I have a book, that's when I will be an author. Um, and it's been hard for me to get out of that because I think like if you've written a book, you're an author, like you have authored that book. And it's kind of silly, but I think that moment for me was when I changed my after I signed with my agent, I changed my bio from writer to author on Instagram. And I was
Stop.
just like, it's happening. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I've always had a hard time calling myself an author, which is kind of silly, but that was an exciting moment.
Yeah, no, for sure. Hey, I feel you. I mean, welcome to the wannabe author.
No, it's dumb because it's like a self-published. It was a children's book that was commissioned for a local place here in my hometown. We have
Okay.
this like it's called Anderson Gardens. It's this beautiful Japanese garden, and they asked me and my sister to do a book. So I do literally have a book. I just like I always forget about that. It doesn't feel like it counts, but it does.
Oh, I love that. So you're like, I've been an author for a while, actually.
Yeah,
But it
forgot
probably
about
just
it.
lines up with, like, that wasn't your ideal because you wanted to write this novel, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So I can see why you'd feel like that. But yes, you are an author.
Yes,
I'm
I
excited for
am.
you. Okay. Let's kind of break down now that we've gone through kind of your journey, what you've experienced. Let's break down the different routes of publishing.
Yeah.
Now we've got traditional indie and self-publishing. Um, do you want to go do you want to go into I guess we've broken down traditional publishing. We've broken it down through your journey. You write the book, you get your agent, and then you go out on submission. We'll figure the rest out from there. But
Yeah. We don't know what happens next. Do we?
from my basic Google research,
Yeah.
you get your book deal, and the traditional publishing that takes care of everything from social media to all the stuff.
Mhm.
So, did you ever consider self-publishing at all?
I did super briefly, but not very seriously, when I was querying Mind of a Flying Bird, which was that second book I queried around
Hmm.
this time last year. And only because, like, I love that book and I really have a hard time sometimes seeing a place for it. It's like it's kind of literary young adult. I write mostly young adult and middle grade, but it's very like
Hmm.
deep. It's about grief, and I just like I didn't see a place for it. So I was like, maybe I should just pull the trigger and self-publish. But um, yeah, then the whole After Charlie thing happened. So, but I haven't seriously considered. I've
Hmm.
always wanted to put my hand at traditional first and see what happens. So I
For
haven't really
sure.
considered publishing.
So, originally I self-published, and just to kind of break down that route, there's many different platforms. But I
Mhm.
used Amazon KDP, published my book. I didn't get an editor. With self-publishing, you do everything on your own. And I did not have the funds for an editor. So I just kind of threw it out there to the world. Um, but I think I honestly I didn't even know traditional publishing. I didn't know how to get into it or anything like that. So that's why I ended up doing the
Yeah.
self-publishing route at first. But that is a one-man band. I think it takes so much work and time
Hmm.
and a lot more understanding than I had to be successful in that route. But it is a very awesome resource. And
Hmm.
then indie's kind of like the smaller publishers, and you said you dealt with a smaller publisher, right? Am I totally wrong?
Yeah, yeah. Indie, I mean, I feel like indie kind of gets lumped in with self-publishing now. But it
Yes.
is technically its own thing. Like working with smaller independent publishers that aren't part of one of the like big five or like a hybrid publisher.
Hmm. Very interesting that
Mhm.
is how it's kind of, I don't know, evolved.
Yeah.
But yes, that's a smaller publisher. I don't know much. I'm guessing it's kind of like traditional publishing.
Mhm.
Let's see. What do you have any advice for writers that are preparing to query agents?
Yes. This one, it's hard to like give this advice because it's very much a mindset thing. So you have to do the work to get into this mindset. But my advice would be just be realistic as you can be. Kind of try to separate yourself from your work a little bit because you're going to get so many rejections that is totally inevitable. Like you cannot get around that when you're querying because agents just have so many queries that they get. And just because they're saying no doesn't mean they don't like your writing or that you should set it aside, like I did with that first book I queried because I let it hurt my feelings too much. Um, I don't know when this like switched in my brain for me. It was sometime while querying Mind of a Flying Bird, and I was just like, it's not about my book. Like, my book is good. It's about marketability.
Mhm.
There's not really a place for this in the market right now. It's about the length of my book. My book might be too long for the genre. Or it's about an agent likes this, but they don't have a place on their list for it because they either don't see a place for it in the market or they already have a client with a similar book that they are trying to pitch. And so they can't pitch two books that are too similar. Stuff like that. Like, publishing is a business. And as much as we like love our little baby books, it's so hard to send them out into this like business world. But I think just kind of separating myself from like separating my worth from my book a little bit helped me really keep my head up and keep trudging through the query trenches. Um, and I think that just helped me get through it. So it's tough, but I would also say make sure your query letter is as concise and polished and efficient as possible. You just need to tell who the character is, what's at stake, like the basic plot, like you don't need to get
Mhm.
too deep because agents, honestly, I've heard from multiple agents, they kind of skim these because they're looking for kind of specific things and they don't have a lot of time to do it because they get so many query letters. So you just want to make sure your query package is efficient and also as strong and clean as possible.
Love that. I think that is perfect advice. Um, I got a little lucky when trying to get an agent. I'd only sent out 15 queries, but I was very much lucky that my agent got back to me and was like, "Yes." Because after she said yes, and I was like, "Sick." I got all my rejections from the other ones, and I was like,
Oh,
so
whatever.
it. Yeah, I was like, "Well, you're lost. Somebody wants me." But I I think if those rejections had come in first before she had asked for the full manuscript and had said that she wanted to
Mhm.
work with me, I think that definitely would have sent me over the edge.
Yeah.
So I think that is just fantastic advice because you're right there. We are so in love with our own books and we put so much of our heart, soul, and story into these darn things, but we
Mhm.
are working with businesses and we need to have a commercial mindset. It is a product we're selling,
Mhm.
including our soul. But
Dang, you really did get lucky.
I did. I really did. That's why I just do this because I gotta learn. I feel like I didn't learn very much.
Yeah.
And now I'm just in the midst of it all and trying to catch up.
Awesome though. Yeah, I think like with my first book that I queried, like I said, I got so sad about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and really I should have been taking those fulls and those rejections as like a good sign, like a good step forward.
Oh yeah.
But it's funny because I like cried about those. And then granted, those were like great agents. I would have loved to work with those agents. But
Mm-hmm.
with my other book, I got a full request and I got a rejection on the same day from that same agent. And it didn't even phase me. I was just like,
Oh good.
it is what it is. By that point, I was just like, if it happens, it happens.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No, it is a good mindset to like celebrate the small wins and realize, oh, they were interested enough to ask for this and this and this. It just didn't fit what they want right
Mhm.
now. So
Yeah.
Lovely advice. I love it. So, you have an incredible resource for writers called Novel Bound.
Yes.
I'd love for you to share when you started this platform and what inspired you to start this.
Yeah, Novelbound is it's a baby platform. So my friend Maddie and she and I went to college together. We studied abroad together. We were friends, but we were both writers, but we never really connected on that.
Mm.
And then after college, at some point, we kind of realized we were both querying, like we were both in the query trenches, and we're like, wow, it's so nice to connect with somebody who's in the same boat.
Mhm.
'Cause it really is. And then she and this is kind of a long story, but I was in Barcelona for the whole summer. And she just like happened to be there for a couple days. So we met up and talked about like the need for community and how nice it is to have people that are also writers in your
Yeah.
circle. So we kind of started flirting with this idea of like doing some kind of bookish community or app or something. And then this summer, I think it was like June or July, we were like, we should just start a community. So we started Novel Bound this summer. We didn't officially launch until September, but we're basically a next gen writing community. We offer resources, discounts on various softwares, by the way. If you want Scrivener, we have a discount.
Love
We
it.
do events with agents, authors, industry professionals. And basically the point is to be in community with other writers, but also help give resources and industry knowledge that might otherwise be hard to access. Um, so like we just did an event with an agent and she gave us some really great advice. And it's not every day you can sit down and like hear directly from an agent, you know?
For sure.
So it's been really cool. The community is definitely the biggest aspect of it. I I genuinely like have friends in this community now. It's so cool. Um, we're also planning on doing some writing retreats in the near future. We're kind of planning that right now. But yeah, we just try to focus on bringing writers together, whether you're doing your first ever draft of your first ever book, or whether you are an agented author on submission, or whether you're already published.
Mhm.
Our philosophy is kind of like the more we're in community together, the more we can learn from each other.
Perfect. That is so fun. So awesome. What
Thank you.
that's an incredible um community that you're building up cuz I know when I first started I didn't know anyone, not a single, and I had no idea who to ask. Google was not my friend. All those sponsored ads that kept popping up.
Yeah,
I'd have given anything just to have somebody who was in my same boat or actually understood what I was going through to talk to and
yeah,
to, I don't know, be a friend with. So that's an incredible little thing you guys got put together.
yeah.
I am excited to see where it goes. And
Oh,
writing
me too.
retreats, that's so fun.
Yeah,
So
it's been
exciting.
awesome.
So you have with this community and different people you've talked to help with writers and stuff. Can you share some of the most common questions or struggles you see from writers and how you've been able to help them?
Yeah. I think one thing that it's hard to say because everyone has different struggles with writing, you know, like everyone
Sure.
writes differently. But I think one thing most people deal with is imposter syndrome. Um, Everybody within the writing community that I have met has some feeling of like I'm not as good as this person. I will never be as good as this person. And
Hmm.
even like obviously myself, I feel that like being just because I have an agent and doesn't mean that I like have made it, you know? I even as a debut author, there's like so many hoops you have to jump through to try to get your book on shelves and selling and everything. And I think there's this big misconception that like once you're a traditionally published author, you're just like you've made it. But I think
Hmm.
everyone kind of has this sense of um yeah, just not being good enough. And that's I think what you're writing is worth writing and is I always say writing is inherently purposeful. So even if you're not getting it where you want to be right now, like there's time, you have time. Um, yeah, so that's something I've struggled with and have been kind of pushing back against in my own life. And I just see that in a lot of other writers, and we just kind of want to encourage them that like you're you're doing the dang thing. Like so many people want to
Hmm.
write a book and you are doing it, and that's awesome.
Love that. You're a creative writing teacher, right? Am I
I
remembering that right?
am as of
Okay.
like 3 weeks ago.
Well, I can tell you're very well spoken. Like
Thanks.
I'm just listening to you. I'm like, yeah, yeah.
That's
I
so nice of you to
aspire.
say. I feel like I never know what I'm talking about. It's like that Michael Scott Michael Scott quote when he's like, "I just hope I figure it out on the way." Whatever he says. That's me.
Yeah, I love that. No, you speak. You're very eloquent in how you explain and talk. So just needed to put that out there.
I hope
I
my
appreciate it.
7th and 8th grade creative writing students would feel the same. I don't know if they
I
would.
bet they do. I bet they do. I bet they love your class. Okay, that was good. What is one piece of craft advice you wish someone had told you early on in the journey?
I have a couple. One is sentence variation. This is like such a random one, but um, making sure your sentences are different lengths and have different cadences so you can kind of create a rhythm,
Hmm.
because it really keeps the reader's brain engaged as they're reading. When I kind of figured that out, I feel like my writing was just elevated a lot. That's just a super small random one, but my other one would be write small. Um, so I tend to write about these like big things like grief, or my book that is on submission right now is about sexual assault. And so I
Yeah.
tend to write about these like big important issues, but writing small, like writing about the little details, how it affects somebody day to day, minute to minute, like that I feel like really makes it feel real. Even if you're writing something completely fantastical, like it's not real at all. Um, Kind of focusing in to these little small moments and interactions, I think really kind of sets your writing apart.
Love that. Okay, you're teaching me already so much in the 30 minutes we've been talking.
Hey, I have a degree in this, so
No, and it shows. No, you're doing so well. I am learning a ton from, because I'm gonna be totally real. I've I have no schooling. I've I have a dream and that's it.
that is enough.
That is enough for me. But I, like you said, having big what is it? Big things in your book, but writing small. And that was kind of something I had to learn because I do write romance, but there are big underlying topics at
Hmm.
hand. Like my first book, that's my debut, that's on submission. It deals with trauma in the body and how
Hmm.
my FMC is overcoming her trauma and dealing with it day by day. And that was really hard for me because I knew I wanted to talk on this subject.
Hmm.
But you're right, taking something big and writing it small into the small habits and the small gestures, and
Yeah.
it's good. That's a very big lesson to learn. As, at least it was for me. Took me a while. So that was good. Okay. So you've kind of mentioned your book that's currently out on submission.
Hmm.
As much as you can, I'd love to hear more about it. Like title, can you give a quick pitch to it?
Also, I talk about my writing all the time on TikTok, so if you ever want to hear more about it, come and find me. Um, but yeah, My book is called After Charlie. It's about a college freshman, Maddie, who returns from her first semester of art school and finds out her childhood best friend, Charlie, has been accused of sexual assault. So it is a big, scary topic. Um, I'm actually a little shy about talking about it in my real life with actual people I know because they're just like, why did you write a book about that? And I'm like, why not? Like, because I did. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so basically, it spans past and present, kind of going back through their childhood from like the time they met when they were 8 or 9 until they're in college, where it is presently. And it's like Maddie trying to reconcile this person she used to know with who he is now, trying to figure out what could have led him to have done something like this, whether or not she even believes him, like and then kind of exploring the way we raise boys versus girls, or how little microaggressions can grow into big, very serious, irreversible things like sexual
Mm-hmm.
assault. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, it's kind of a tough book, but I think it's very much also about like girlhood and like the power of these female friendships and the power of like being gentle with people and allowing yourself to be gentle, like as a man too,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. There's a lot going on in that book, but
No, I love that. That is going to be a work of art. I'm very much looking forward to that. So
thank you.
excited. Um, so would you say probably the most challenging part of writing this book would be like the deep topics, or did you have anything else that you struggled with writing?
There were two things I think I struggled with this book. One was just the timeline. There's a lot of back and forth, and trying to figure out the pacing of the book when you have half of it's in flashbacks is a little tricky.
Yeah.
And also, so I ended up making a calendar, and I was like, of like the present time, and I was like, okay, this is when this preliminary hearing would happen, and this is when blah 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 and blah blah blah, and it was really confusing for me for some reason, but I figured it out. The other hard thing about writing this was, yeah, the subject matter. Um, I didn't know how to end it, and I don't want to like explain too much because I don't want to explain the ending, but um, back probably a year ago when I was trying to finish up the first draft of this book, which is crazy that was a year ago. Um, when I was trying to finish up, I posted on TikTok and I was like, this is the general gist of what this story is. Does anyone have any like anecdotes or book recommendations or like movies I should watch as I'm trying to kind of figure out what this is?
Mm-hmm.
And this one girl messaged me on TikTok and I cannot find the message. I don't know if her TikTok is gone or what happened, but I can't find it. But she messaged me and was like, I have a very similar story to what happened in this book, where like someone I love was accused of sexual assault. And so ended up asking her, how do you think I should end it? Because I could not figure out, like, should he be guilty? Should he even have done it? Like, should he be guilty but get off free? Like, I couldn't figure
Yeah.
it out because I didn't know what would do justice to this story.
Yeah.
And so I ended up asking her, like, how should I end it? And she told me how she thinks I should end it, which is how I ended it. So that really helped.
Really?
Yeah. Just knowing someone had had a similar experience and they were like, no, you need to end it this way. That's how I did it. So I won't say more than that.
How cool. No, I totally understand. And thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
That's so cool. And also goes to show just how much books aren't just our thought processes,
Mhm.
but a combination of experiences and not
Yeah.
even just our experiences.
Yeah.
It's that is so
And
cool.
this whole book is like a just culmination of all these women's stories that I kind of gathered for a few months on
Hmm.
TikTok and like just things I had heard, my
Yeah.
own memories of things, like things I know that happened to people I know. It's just kind of a hodgepodge. But it's actually inspired by a TikTok too, which is the whole thing, which is crazy. So it is very much like, yeah, it's not writing is a solitary thing, but it's never completely solitary. It definitely has influences
Yeah.
from a lot of different people. So,
Okay. So, would you say that's the most rewarding part of having written that book was getting all those accounts and making it into something, or what would be the most rewarding part of having written that book?
yeah, that was super satisfying to be able to do that. I think one of the most rewarding parts so far, like I've had a few people read it, my beta readers, and just them saying like, wow, this is like what it felt like to grow up as a girl. That has been really rewarding. Just
Yeah.
being able to like capture that feeling. Um, and then I don't know, I'm just excited to see what other rewarding things will come out of this whole process because it has been super rewarding already, but it's not
Hmm.
even published yet, which has been cool. Just being able to like share that online a bit too and hear people kind of share like, I'm so excited to read this. It's been awesome. So
Okay. I love that. Um, how do you stay inspired or motivated during the tough creative or business moments?
it's funny you should ask that because I am horribly unmotivated right now. um, I seriously haven't written substantially this entire month, actually since like
Mhm.
Christmas. Yeah, so this whole month, which is hard because I last year was so motivated the whole year. I wrote so much, queried two different books, got an agent, started a business. Like
Mhm.
2024 was wild. And then this year I'm just like, what do I do now?
Yeah.
Um, so I think one important thing I've learned is to always have another project going. Um, that definitely helped when I was querying, to have something else to focus on. Even if I was just like in the very early stages of brainstorming something, like it's good to just have something going. Um, yeah, and I think sometimes you just gotta trudge through the feeling of not being motivated because um I don't know. I feel like it's important to just keep moving forward and you don't want to push yourself to the point of burnout, which I think I might have done a little bit personally. But I definitely think it's important to like always have things moving forward, not letting
Mhm.
yourself get stuck on one thing or like, you know, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was well said. Okay, fun questions now as,
Yeah.
as we end off. So you're more into the YA fiction, heavy topics, but are there any out of pocket genres you would like to try your hand at in writing in the future?
There sure are. So last year, one of the books that I just wrote for fun while I was querying after Charlie is this zombie apocalypse road trip novel. It's
Okay.
awful. It is so bad. And I'm
I
actually
highly
really
doubt that.
no, it's bad. Um, yeah, I'm excited to revisit that. I'm trying to focus more on leaning into some more like speculative things, things that will challenge me a little bit more. Am so I'm such a realist in many ways, and that really shows in my fiction too. But I really want to challenge myself to write things that are, um, they lean into like a zombie apocalypse, for example, or like magical realism, just kind of things like that. I'm actually I started writing it alongside my students because they all have to write a short story by the end of the quarter.
Okay.
And so I was just like, I'll write one too. And I started writing this story about a space lizard who crash lands on Earth. Um, and I'm envisioning like a middle grade graphic novel. But
Yeah,
I'm early stages of that, planning that. It's just kind of fun. I'm like, what am
that is
I'm
fun.
writing a middle grade sci-fi lizard novel now. So
I love that. That's so fun. Your kids are gonna eat that up.
I don't know if I'm gonna share it with them. They're gonna think I'm weird. Yeah,
No,
but that's
I love that so much. Okay. Um, do you have a favorite trope or genre you like to, well, we know what you like to write in, but any that you like to read?
I really switch around with my books. I read a lot of different stuff. Like I'm reading like 5 books right now. But I love reading middle grade and young adult. I tend to lean more towards
Hmm.
realistic fiction, but currently re here it's right here. I'm on I think this is book 4 in the series Gregor the Overlander. This was like my favorite
Okay.
series as a kid. There's like an underground world, prophecies, lots of things. So I'm rereading that just for fun. So
Oh, cool.
I love books that are like very not realistic, even though that's what I write, but I
Hmm.
still also read a lot of realistic fiction. I don't tend to read or write for certain tropes.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I just don't. But yeah, I read a lot of different things. I'm a very indecisive person in that way.
I think that is, what is it? I wouldn't say, yeah, like, I think that's good. Like a skill to be able to read and intake any genre. I think it's very important as an author to be able to do that. So,
I don't read romance though. I don't know if I've ever really read a
really?
romance novel. So maybe it's time. Maybe you should give me some
I,
recommendations. Maybe I should read
I'm about to say, I'll be
one.
your first.
Okay.
No, I don't. I got recommendations falling out my sleeves. I got you.
Okay.
Um, do you have a comfort book or series that you'll always go back to?
I really do love this Gregor the Overland series. Like
Yeah.
I just read it and I'm like, wow, I'm 10 years old again. Um,
Stop.
I think most of my comfort books are ones that I read when I was younger, like Percy Jackson. I love The
Mm.
Hunger Games. Um, yeah, I also love, where is it? This book, great book. I'm sitting by my bookshelf.
Okay.
That's why.
No, I love that.
Everything I Told You by Celestine. That's one of my favorites. There's just a few that I've read multiple times, so I would consider those like my comfort books, but yeah.
Okay. I think it definitely is always the ones from when we were younger. Because I think, have you ever read the Goose Girl series by Shannon Hale?
No, I have not.
Okay. Oh, that that was my series. It's so cute. But
Because
that's more. Say that again.
I still actively read like stuff that's way below my age level, so I'll have to do that. I'll have to read those.
They're just safe places. They really are.
We need
But
that.
yes, definitely read it. It's my favorite. What is next for you? Any teasers about any future projects?
Currently I'm trudging through this spin-off novel. I've been kind of trying to write it for years, and I just write a little bit and then realize it's awful, and I re-outline it and try to write again. So I'm on I don't even know what draft of this thing. Trying to work on that. It's a spin-off to that book, Mind of a Flying Bird.
Okay.
Uh, still gonna be working on like the third or fourth draft of the sequel to Mind of a Flying Bird. So I'm working on like 2 sequels to that, even though I have
Love.
no idea what's gonna happen with any of them. Um, yeah, and then I guess watch out for my lizards lizard story.
I will.
Yeah,
I'm very
I
much
don't
looking
know.
forward to that.
I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to figure out what I want to work on next. I emailed my agent pitches of all my current books and like works in progress and was like, "What do I do? What do I work
Yeah.
on?" We'll see what she says.
What do you recommend? That's what I'm waiting on one of those too. Um, okay, where can listeners find you?
You can find me at purely.sophia or purely_Sophia if you're on Twitter. But pretty much the same everywhere. I'm on just about everything, so you can find me there.
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming, Sophia, or Sophie, sorry.
Whichever one, I don't
But
even care.
okay. Sophie, thank you so much for being here. It is truly a joy to be able to get to talk to you like this after so long of supporting each other on TikTok and other platforms. When TikTok winked out for a second there,
That
but
was so gorgeous. I missed you so much.
I know. Such a fever dream. But I truly have learned so much from you, not only from your TikToks and over the time of following you, but in this little episode, you've taught me a lot. And so thank you for that. I'm
Yeah,
excited for our
thank you so much
listeners to
for
learn.
having me.
Of course, of course. I'd love to chat with you more, but in the meantime, we'll say goodbye to the listeners.
Yeah.
Thanks y'all for being here. We'll see y'all next Thursday. Bye.
Yay.